3 armed security guys pounding on the door at 6 a.m. Yeah, that was not the welcome I expected to the place I'd inherited, my grandfather's old cabin on Lake Crestwood, up in northern Michigan. They didn't even wait for me to put on a shirt, just shoved a thick envelope right into my face. "You have 48 hours to vacate this property, Mr. Sterling," the tallest one growled, looking less like a security guard and more like a disgruntled bouncer. Turns out, the Crestwood Shores Homeowners Collective, CSC, that's their fancy name for the HOA, was trying to evict me, claiming I was trespassing on their community land. What they didn't know was that I was a forensic accountant, and I was about to audit their president's multi-million-dollar mistake. I'd inherited Grandpa Alistair's place just 3 months before. He passed away last winter, and I hadn't been back to the lake since I was maybe 16. Life just got in the way, you know? But after a grueling tax season in Chicago, I desperately needed the peace of the pines and the smell of the lake. That first evening, watching the sunset bleed orange and purple over the water felt like coming home. I was finally breathing again, making plans to fix the deck, replace the leaky faucet, maybe even build a proper dock just like Grandpa always wanted. Then came the dawn raid. In my pajama pants, sipping coffee, I stood blindsided as the guard explained their claim. "Your cabin encroaches on community property by 35 feet, and you're a legal structure. That old dock is a safety hazard." 35 feet? Grandpa Alistair had lived here for 50 years. They just shrugged, pointed me towards the office of the HOA president, a woman named Brenda Thorne, and drove off in a gleaming white SUV emblazoned with that pretentious Crestwood Shores Collective logo. Still reeling, I walked down to the small, weathered dock, the one where I learned to fish with a string and a bent pin. How could this not be ours? Right then, Marcus, my neighbor, shuffled over from his garden. He'd been Grandpa's fishing buddy for decades. "You must be Elias," he said, his face heavy with concern as I explained the eviction notice. Marcus just shook his head grimly. "That's Brenda Thorne's doing, all right. She took over 3 years ago, started her own development company, Thorne Development, and she's been running a little kingdom ever since, pushing out all the old-timers who won't sell. Your grandfather fought her tooth and nail, right up until his health gave out. I think that constant harassment is what really wore him down in the end." That night, poring over the HOA's vague, jargon-filled documents, my blood started to boil. They were trying to intimidate me. But I noticed something else, fresh scratches on the dock posts. Marcus confirmed it. "Oh yeah, Brenda's been renting out that deep water access to weekend tourists, $200 a pop. Your dock is prime real estate, and she's been profiting off it since your grandpa passed." The audacity. Not only were they trying to steal my land, but they'd been using it to line their pockets while the cabin was vacant. As I was putting the papers away, a worn folder tumbled from the bookshelf. Lake Crestwood Original Survey. Keep safe, in Grandpa Alistair's unmistakable, precise hand. Inside was a yellowed survey from 1958, the original deed, and a small, leather-bound journal. Why had he hidden these? The journal confirmed my suspicions. An entry from 5 years ago. "Thorne visited today. Insulting offer for the lot." When I declined, she mentioned new community regulations coming. Taking precautions. The next morning, armed with copies of Grandpa's survey, which clearly showed our property extended a solid 90 feet to the water, I was on high alert. That's when I met Chloe Vance. She was examining the pathetic little property markers with a frown. "You must be Elias," she said, extending her hand. "I'm an environmental lawyer, live 2 cabins north. Marcus told me you're having trouble." Over coffee, Chloe, who'd also inherited her aunt's cabin, explained, "Brenda showed up on my doorstep, claiming my shed was 6 inches over the line, threatened a $10,000 fine. These original surveys are gold, Elias. They either have newer legal documents that supersede these, or they're trying to steal your land, plain and simple." She tapped the survey, her eyes serious. "Your lot has the deepest water access, the best view. Perfect for a luxury marina." The luxury marina. That was the missing piece. I searched online and found the architectural renderings for Thorne Legacy Estates, a massive development plan for the exact location of my cabin. The projected revenue? over $3 million. Their entire blueprint hinged on controlling the cove where my dock sat, the only spot deep enough for the high-end yacht slips featured in their marketing. I wasn't just fighting for Grandpa's cabin. I was standing directly in the way of Brenda Thorne's survival. That afternoon, Brenda Thorne herself showed up in her cream-colored suit, flanked by 2 assistants with clipboards. She didn't introduce herself, just snap photos of my deck. "Mr. Sterling, your railing violates the safety code. Your boat isn't registered. And we've installed security cameras for community safety." She pointed to a camera, now aimed directly at my front door. I kept my smile polite, fighting down the rage. "Miss Thorne, I believe there's some confusion about my boundaries. I have the original, recorded surveys." She cut me off with a dismissive wave, her impeccable blonde hair barely moving. "Outdated documents, Mr. Sterling. The community has evolved. Attend our annual meeting next time. Now, here's a violation notice for unauthorized parking. $200 due in 30 days. As they drove off, one of her goons photographed my car, my mailbox, even the bird feeder. But I had already made a critical move. I called the county assessor's office. Grandpa Alistair, bless his foresight, had filed for a comprehensive property reassessment just 6 months before he passed. The results were not only finalized, but officially recorded 3 weeks before his death. The document clearly stated, the Sterling property extends to the natural shoreline with riparian rights to adjacent waters, as established in the original 1958 deed. I didn't just own the land to the lake. I had legal control over the water access itself. I owned the whole damn cove. Armed with official confirmation, I decided to crash the monthly HOA meeting. The community center was all glass and imported stone, built to impress investors, not the cabin owners. Brenda ran the meeting like a dictator, swatting away concerns about rising fees. When the floor opened, I stood up. "I'd like to address the board regarding the boundary dispute at the Sterling property." Brenda's eyes narrowed, but her smile remained fixed. "Property disputes are handled in writing, Mr. Sterling, not open meetings." I smiled back, holding up the county documents. "Actually, Bylaw 7.3 permits discussion if a dispute impacts community resources. Since you've claimed my dock and been renting my water rights to non-residents, this qualifies." The room erupted. I let my voice carry to the back. "I have official certification from the county assessor confirming my property includes the entire 90 feet of shoreline, encompassing the area where the collective has been collecting dock rental fees." Douglas, the HOA lawyer, immediately began whispering urgently to Brenda. I pressed on. "Furthermore, I have documented instances of harassment, utility interference, trespassing, and the installation of surveillance equipment on my private property. I prefer an amicable resolution, but I am prepared to file criminal charges." The next morning, I was met with predictable, petty retaliation. Water and electricity shut off, with a notice citing emergency infrastructure upgrades taking 2 to 4 weeks. I drove to town, bought solar panels, a generator, and a water filtration system. If they want to play dirty, I'd go off-grid. Chloe helped me install the panels, shaking her head. "She's trying to wear you down, Elias. Most people can't afford to fight her small-town corruption. But Chloe had more. I've been reviewing Thorne Development's documents. They submitted conflicting environmental impact studies. One showed minimal disruption. The other showed massive dredging for the marina, a definite violation of state environmental law. It was time to escalate. I filed for an emergency injunction against the HOA, citing illegal eviction and theft. Meanwhile, I drove to the county office and officially registered my riparian water rights, then immediately sent Brenda a formal notice. She was encroaching. Instead of demanding the dock's removal, I offered a reasonable licensing agreement. They could keep the dock in exchange for recognizing my boundaries and paying a nominal fee. Brenda called an emergency board meeting. She launched a character assassination, calling me a greedy opportunist exploiting outdated language. That's when Harbor Master Jeffrey Taylor, who was sitting with the board, stood up. He looked directly at Brenda. "I've consulted with state water management. Mr. Sterling's claim is valid. His riparian rights haven't been surrendered. We should consider his offer. Brenda's face flushed crimson. You're out of order, Jeffrey. He gathered his papers, walking out. No, Brenda. You're out of order, and I won't be part of it anymore. The damage was done, but Brenda wasn't finished. I returned to the cabin that night to find a team of workers inside, removing my furniture and changing the locks. She'd skipped the courts entirely. Big mistake. I called the sheriff, but he claimed he couldn't respond until morning. Convenient, since Brenda's husband played poker with him every Thursday. I spent the night in my car, feeling utterly defeated, watching them load Grandpa's heirlooms into storage containers labeled Thorn Development Corporation. But the tables were about to turn. The judge, initially dismissive, was presented with the video evidence from Grandpa Alistair's hidden clock camera. The footage showed Brenda Thorne, clearly and maliciously, instructing workers to look for property documents and to strip this place clean before I could get back in. It was the smoking gun. Clear, undeniable criminal intent. The judge immediately issued a temporary restraining order, and the sheriff, now under judicial order, had to personally escort me back to the property. The look on Brenda Thorne's face the next morning when she saw what was floating in the lake was priceless. Over the night, I had legally and carefully removed all the sections of the HOA's massive community dock that encroached on my riparian rights. Her expensive rental slips, now useless, were clustered awkwardly in the public marina. Then came the whistleblower, Daniel Atkins, a board member. He met me secretly, his hands trembling as he passed me a manila envelope. The documents detailed years of financial mismanagement. Brenda had been systematically diverting nearly $700,000 in HOA fees to prop up her bankrupt development company, disguising it as community improvements. She was running a shell game. I used Daniel's documents, the environmental violations Chloe provided, and my own video evidence. At the final emergency board meeting, where Brenda tried to push through a $3,000 per household assessment to fund a lawsuit against me, I timed my entrance perfectly. I connected my projector and presented the whole audit, the $700,000 embezzlement, the falsified minutes, and the video of her ordering a break-in. But it was her meltdown that sealed her fate. "You ungrateful people," she shrieked, totally losing her composure. "My development would have made you all rich, pricing out all the riff-raff who can't afford to live in a premium community." The silence in the room was chilling. The board voted her out unanimously. The aftermath was swift. The prosecutor opened an investigation into fraud and embezzlement. Thorn Development collapsed. My boundaries were officially recognized. I worked with the new, transparent HOA leadership to establish a fair dock-sharing agreement, with fees going to actual community improvements. Most importantly, Chloe and I created the Crestwood Legal Defense Fund to ensure no other homeowner would have to face this battle alone. Grandpa Alistair always told me, sometimes standing your ground isn't just about protecting what's yours, Elias. It's about building something better for everyone. He was right. 6 months later, Chloe and I moved her practice into town. We converted the land Brenda had wanted to pave into a protected conservation zone. I did send Brenda Thorne a little housewarming gift after I heard she was managing a mini-mall in Arizona, a beautifully framed copy of my original recorded property survey. I thought she might want to hang it up as a little reminder to always read the fine print. So, tell me, have you ever dealt with an HOA that overstepped their boundaries? What's the craziest power trip you've ever witnessed in a neighborhood association? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll be reading every single one of your stories.